happy July. Let's talk about the astrology for this month because it's going to be electrifying change. Electrifying and sudden change will be coming into our worlds. And I think it's always important. I see astrology as this way of supporting us because every time I look at astrology, especially when we have bigger things coming in, you can see all the other things that are happening to prepare us for that. But are we listening? Are we aligning ourselves? Are we taking action where we're being guided to take action? So today it's July 1st, so I'm going to talk a little bit like from today and kind of move through the month a little bit, but specifically around the things that I'm finding to be the important conversation relating it back, which basically is it's time for transformation. We need to do things a new way, not just in the world, but within ourselves. It is time to heal wounds that have been lingering in some fashion or another, or like basically not tended to. Now they need to be tended to if they're not being tended to. So we were going through, when we were dealing with that Mars retrograde, earlier this year, Mars was in a opposition with Pluto. That didn't feel great. One, it never feels good when Mars is retrograding, but it was also doing it in Cancer, where it doesn't like to be. But then it was doing it in opposition to Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, transformation. So we were getting some, guidance or push to look at what were the emotions when it was in Cancer that needed to be, looked at. But then when it was in Leo, it was more about our self-expression. So it was looking for us to, look at that part of ourselves and the way that we need to transform to be able to continue to move forward, to birth this next life. What actions do we need to take in our emotional world and in our self-expressive and what I would think of also as our spiritual world, the places, the way that we're connected to the spiritual world. So that was already going on in the past. Today, yesterday, the day before, Mercury is now in that position, where it is opposing Pluto. So for those of you that are ruled by Mercury, that would be our Virgo risings, Gemini risings, you probably have been feeling very strong messaging around this is what is needed for you to die and be reborn, to have that transformation, to heal. So that's for all of us. We're all getting it, but I'm just saying I think those of us that are ruled by that planet are going to really feel that implication, in particular ways. But also because Mercury's sign, Gemini, one of its signs, because it's got two signs, it's got Gemini and it's got Virgo, has new movement coming in. There's some things that are coming in. So let's talk about that. So July 4th, which is just in a few days, I think it's, an interesting time that the planet of freedom is doing all of this work right around, the United States, a day of, freedom that we talk about on the 4th of July when we celebrate the signing of the Constitution. Now, let's not forget that the United States is going through its Pluto return right now based on that date, death, rebirth cycle. So within that bigger context, there's all this little movement going on. You can look at the chart of any country, actually, and start to see very clearly what is going on in this world. This is why astrologers are actually going to be vital messengers for our planet as we move forward, because we're looking at all of the things that are in coordination. And of course, it's going to come with friction. Of course, it's going to come with things that are ugly, dark, because there is no light without dark. It's all part of it. So but you have healthy sources that can do the interpretation from a more objective perspective when we can say, okay, what is this asking of me? That is what's important for all of us to be doing right now. Okay, so on July 4th, Venus. Venus has been in Taurus. Lovely. Why? Because Venus rules Taurus. So that was a really nice, lovely transit that we've been experiencing. Venus in Taurus is all about our sensual self. It feels to me that she's trying to have us reconnect with our physical bodies and the sensations that we experience to help us decide what is right for us and what is no longer right for us. Our bodies are going to become the mechanism for how we make our decisions going forward. Is this aligned or is it not aligned? I had an experience last week, like where I was in the company of one person and, I felt it was like one feeling, and then I was in the company of another and it was a completely different feeling. My body was communicating lots of things to me about that. It's trust. We need to have trust. And that's, to me, a big part of this Jupiter Kazemi that happened in Cancer, is helping us learn to trust ourselves, our bodies. So that's the first thing, because it was a new moon. It was the sun, the moon, and Jupiter were all together in that area in Cancer, which represents the physical body. It represents the moon, but, of the physical body. So Venus is going to be moving into Gemini out of Taurus. But before it does that, it's meeting up with Uranus, who's at the last degree of Taurus. Big deal. Uranus has been in Taurus since 2019. Have we not had a lot change, Uranus, on Earth, Taurus, in those years? Did we not get these sudden changes? Just think about from 2019 to now, how quickly something would kind of happen on Earth. Now that also includes weather. Look at the storms that we continue to deal with, earthquakes. That's what Uranus in Taurus is like. But it's also because Taurus is our sensual self, and I think our senses, and when we think of our sensory self, Uranus is electricity. Uranus is the planet of lightning. It does bring these lightning changes, but it's very electrical in nature. So to me, I feel like we've been getting this information in electrical ways into our bodies to help us move forward and start learning this new compass within ourselves that we have. And Uranus that's what it wants to do. It wants to strip things away. It wants to liberate us. It wants to have breakthroughs. It's the one that's inventive, and comes up with these original ideas. That's Uranus's nature. Why? Because it cares about humanity. It's the humanitarian, and it cares about the future. It wants things that are going to be sustainable and that make sense in regards to that, but it's very future oriented in general. So Venus, the planet of relationships, money, the feminine, it's meeting up with Uranus on the 4th, the same day that it gets ready to move into Gemini, the next sign. This is happening at 29 degrees of Taurus. Anything that happens at the 29th degree of anything is going to pull focus, because it's getting ready to finish something up that's big. And the 29th degree is around mastery, So to me, it's what have we mastered since 2019? Because Uranus is finishing up that chapter. It is going to retrograde one more time in there, later this year. But this is the first moment it's moving out of the Earth sign and into an air sign, Gemini, at the same time that Venus is doing it. I find it very interesting that it's doing it with the feminine planet. I feel with the Mars and Venus retrogrades that we were experiencing and the formation that those two planets have had with each other, we are trying to figure out how to balance our masculine and feminine within ourselves, because clearly the projection of what's going on inside of us is showing us all kinds of issues in front of us in our world. And this way that we divide, around that, quite literally, when we cannot. We are both. We all have our masculine and feminine. We have different levels of, that energy at any given time. It's part of what makes us up and has us express as we do. There's time when we want that masculine energy to be really strong. That's helping us structure and move things forward. And then we really need times where that Venus is stepping forward and saying, it's time to slow down. It's time to receive. It is time to perceive things. Okay. So again, Venus, Uranus, relationships, money, women, feminine, meeting up with, breakthroughs, liberation, freedom, going your own way. When Uranus is involved, we will see sudden change, sudden breaks, sudden breakthroughs. So I would be mindful in your relationships right now that energy is going to be present. It's an opportunity to transform, and have these breakthroughs inside of your relationship. It's also an opportunity to leave them. So I'm giving you that. It's there to support. They're coming together again, 4th of July. So if you're having a picnic, Be mindful of that energy around you if you're around a lot of people, because you may just notice this dynamic inside of wherever you are. Okay, the same day that happens, Neptune, so again, 4th of July, Neptune, who just made its grand entrance this year into Aries, denoting a new 165-year cycle since March, is now going to retrograde backwards. So it's at that first degree of, actually it's at the second degree of Aries right now, but it's going to retrograde backwards. And it is going to retrograde backwards into Pisces. All of our eclipses, started last year, through this year, into next year, are going to be in Pisces. That's the part of the eclipse. Those eclipses are about propelling us forward and staying on track. The ones that are going to be in Virgo are going to be about releasing something. So this movement of these planets back into Pisces, it's saying, to me at least, we're trying to have you review some things, because we're going to be doing, because to me, basically eclipses act like Uranus. Sudden change. Like you will always see around eclipses within those 2 weeks, major shifts and change if they're necessary, particularly if those eclipses are going off in very important parts of your chart or near placements. You will see it. So that's, sometimes we go through periods where there's none of that happening, and then we go through periods where it's literally happening with every eclipse. Why? Because it's trying to help us stay on path. If we have not been listening to the regular guidance we get, in whatever way you get it, whether it's through a teacher, whether it's through meditation, through your God, through a parent, whatever way you get guidance, if that felt aligned, any way that you are resisting it is going to just keep the pressure on, and it's going to blow up. Like when we have an inclination about something and we ignore it out of fear, or because we think, well, this is the old way, it's always worked this way, I am going to guarantee you it is going to blow up in our faces in very quick and reactive ways, because that's where we're at. When Uranus moves into Gemini, it is moving from a slow-moving earth sign into a very busy up-in-the-head sign. Uranus, I like to call it the higher octave of Mercury. It's moving into Mercury's sign. It's to say we are going to connect the two messengers, the one from above that's going to create the breakthroughs with the earthly communicator. So I think that so many of us are going to start noticing our own abilities to channel things through in quantum ways, very quick ways. But if we resist, that restriction is going to be up here, and I believe we will see all forms of mental health stuff really exploding in big ways, because this is about freedom, and if we're resisting freedom, we are putting ourselves in jail. With that said, Saturn and Neptune, who both just moved into Aries, not only is Neptune going to retrograde, Saturn is going to retrograde. Chiron is going to retrograde. They are all in Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. Neptune, the boundaryless part of us that dreams and imagines, but is also, in the clouds, in delusion, is in escapism. This is why I've been telling you that these eclipses are going to be working with people who are having issues around addiction. I would highly recommend you take this summer to work on that. I very much was hearing that this is the summer to make amends with people that you need to make amends with. If you do not, that's fine. Everybody has free will. But it's an opportunity to do this work now while the weather is there for you. Okay. So, Chiron, the wounded healer, will be retrograding. Neptune, the delusional, dreamy planet, retrograding, going back. Saturn, I'm here to create structures and delays so we can build this new thing, is going to retrograde. They're all going to be retrograding, starting their retrograde path this month. So we had just gotten this movement of moving forward, which probably felt like a lot for a lot of us, the things that have come into our life. I'm sure in the last 3-4 weeks, there's been a lot of movement in your life. That is going to continue, but with these planets retrograding, it's for reflection. Slow down. What did we miss? What do we need to tend to? If we do not prepare our house for the sale, it ain't gonna sell. That's that we have to prepare ourselves for this next chapter. The more that you do that, the easier this will be. You can tend to it a little bit every day versus, I always say, the divine comes in as a whisper first, then a knock at the door. And then if you don't listen and you bypass both of those, it's going to blow your house down. So I'm being really serious. This is what, like, if you want to see a planet change, it's got to happen inside of all of us. So don't resist. That's the biggest thing I'd like to say. So Uranus will enter Gemini. That's going to happen on July 7th, next week. Big deal. Like I said, it's the last outer planet to move. We had Pluto move last year. We had Neptune, move. Uranus is the third furthest out planet. It's now moving into a new sign. Saturn, the next planet, moved into a new sign. Jupiter just moved into a new sign. We are in new territory, and you now need to start feeling out, what does it feel like to be in this world now? How do I know when something is right, and how do I know when something is wrong? We are going to really feel this impetus to, or we should, there's going to be the anxiety parts of us that are going to want to speed up and try to fix things and get things set up as quickly as possible because we don't want to chance the breakdowns. We're not going to be able to avoid breakdowns. It is going to be, I think, almost virtually impossible. But through breakdowns, we will see how resilient we are, and that we can start to see the parts that don't matter anymore in this, and that need to be left behind, so that we can reconstruct from a place that is authentic to where we're going. You need to know where you're going, and if where you're going is based on goals of yesterday, please take time to reevaluate inside of this new energy, because a lot of that is not going to work. I have seen repeatedly, especially healers, people who are in healing work, like their businesses have slowed down significantly because they're being called for a higher calling, and yet they are trying to do this thing, to make sure, they keep up with the internet and they keep up with all that, which, by the way, Uranus will rule social media and the internet. We're going to see changes in that world. There's going to be a lot of shifts. So be really mindful of, if you're committing to, for instance, starting a business on a certain platform, I would really recommend you know what's behind that platform, where your data is going, because all of that is going to be coming into question in a big way. And if you're going to be investing your time and energy into something, please make sure it is aligned with your morals and values. If it is not, it is not going to go well. It is not going to go well. That's awesome, because it's going to keep us staying inside that which we feel aligned with. So I'm having this experience every time I'm not totally listening to, or I'm trying to do something the old way or give something a second chance or a third chance or whatever. Nope. There's real clear saying okay, you can do that, but you're going to just start a whole new rotation with lots of those boundary issues again. Good luck. Have fun with that, because it's going to be going so fast that any of that interruption is really going to get in the way of your life and your freedom and your liberation, which we are all seeking right now. Okay, so Saturn's going to retrograde on the 13th. It is in, like I said, it's in those beginning degrees of Aries. Then guess who else is going to retrograde? Like I said earlier, Mercury. Mercury is going to turn around on the 18th. We know with Mercury retrogrades, it is not a great time to, sign contracts, make big decisions, because there's, things that are getting overlooked. So if you have big decisions to make, I highly recommend you wait until Mercury goes direct, which will be in the second week of August. Just saying that, because I know a lot of people who are looking to move or book trips and all that kind of stuff. So just take that into consideration. That's why I think I'm having Uranus. Uranus is moving out of Taurus, where I have a ton of a ton of planets, and it's moving into Gemini, where I have my Venus. And so there's this place that it feels like it's working with me and saying look, I'm going to cancel that trip. Yep. That retreat you were going to do. Yep. We got to cancel that stuff. It's not going to be in alignment with where you're going. I'm just trusting it. I'm not making a bunch of meaning out of it. I highly recommend you do the same. We will have our full moon on the 10th in Capricorn. It's going to be at 18 degrees Capricorn. So feel free to look at your chart where that might be. There is something that is culminating there for you. Then the 13th, that's the day Saturn goes retrograde. 18th, Mercury goes retrograde. Then we've got our sun moving into Leo. Woohoo! It'll feel better for those of us that have been finding ourselves super emotional. And then we'll have our new moon in Leo will be on July 24th. Chiron's going to retrograde on the 30th of the month. Venus will then move out of Gemini and into Cancer on the same day, the 30th of the month. But I think it's going to be like, again, this conversation where she's meeting up with where this whole new start happened with this last new moon and Jupiter. She's going to be coming into that energy, and I just feel like there's some real potency when she meets up with Jupiter around this, like us really getting this feminine energy that's going to be in Cancer, that's like compassionate and supportive. So then the sun is, we're going to have a sun conjunct Mercury, which is what we call a Mercury cazimi. That's during the retrograde, because it's moving backwards. That will be at Leo 9 degrees. Okay, so that's July. Like, that's a big part of what this month is going to feel like. So again, Uranus is very electrical. It's going to want sudden change. It is going to want to bring breakthroughs for you. Slow down this summer. Please slow down. Sit and stare out at the water. What is coming in? Every time I clear something off, every time I I wrote an email to someone about something that happened like 3 years ago. And it was really insignificant in a lot of ways. Like, most people are like, are you serious? Like, you've been thinking about that since then? But I had. Like, it kind of just gnawed at me. And then I had something really amazing happen about a month ago where I ran into someone, and it was someone who was related to this person that this other situation was involved with. That's me. That's what divine guidance is for me. That was the opening to say, yes, we want you to clear that out, because anything where you don't feel whole, or that you may run into someone like that feels like an enemy, or that you don't feel complete with, it's going to haunt you. It's going to haunt you. So clear that stuff out. Do the deeper work. If you're in a one-on-one relationship with someone, whether that's in a professional, personal, romantic, parent, this is a really good time to start clearing the air, like get to the truth of what is so, and then start making decisions from possibility. If it's coming from resistance, it's really going to be rough. I'm just going to tell you right now, because we're moving ahead. It doesn't feel good to go against the waves. The waves are going to be big. They're going to be big at times. You want to ride them. You don't want to slam into them and then get knocked out. A shoulder gets pulled out of its socket, scratches from rocks from tumbling on the ground. You can do it. That's how some of us are going to do it. You're going to watch people do this like this. So I'm just giving you July. There's other things that are going on, but I think it's important to know that there's a bunch of planets that are about to turn around. And so forward movement is slowing down for us to dream about what is this future we're creating, to get clear about what are our morals and values that we will align with when we can't figure out what we're supposed to do in this world. It's your body and your alignment to that which you believe in that is going to make all the difference. So you've got to get right with that. I highly, like I said, make amends with people is one of the best ways to start doing that. If and again, it could be really mundane. If you've not or maybe you just actually want to tell certain people, thank you, or I'm so grateful for whatever where you have been, kind of been a little out of integrity, or where you feel you could have said more. This is a great time to revisit that stuff. When we have retrogrades, particularly Mercury retrograde, there is a good chance from people from the past coming back. So I'm just going to recommend you use this as your opportunity. All right. Thank you for listening to this. I'm trying to keep these under 20. I'm over by 4 minutes, but I'm going to be doing more of these probably on YouTube, as I'm trying to migrate things away from social media while all of this chaos is happening. I'll always put links there for people to see. But yeah, if you like what I say, how I say it, please subscribe, make a comment. Let me know if this resonates with you and what you're dealing with. Or if there's specific things you want me to come on here and talk about. I'd love to hear it. All right. Good luck to you this summer.